IT support as well. I think I hope that you had a bit of fun with the tools. The idea of the exercise is just to open up the perception that there is a lot of data out there, a lot of real-time data about what consumer interests are, and how to actually measure different levels or different areas of consumer interest, and basically be able to pitch them against each other. Is there more interest in football or music, in recipes, or in coffee in general? And those are the questions that you probably never thought about them, but actually you can answer those questions using some of these tools. What I'm going to do is we're not going to debrief what we've just done right now. We're going to actually go straight into the site strategy, which is actually pretty simple, and comprises basically of answering two main questions. One is the overarching theme is obviously what content should you be focusing on. You probably have a few good ideas from your discussions about things that your brand should be doing, content that you should be producing. What you're going to think about is actually ranking content areas in order of importance. So out of the three themes that you've identified, which ones are more important to you? Now that you've also had a bit of an indication from looking at search volumes, how much interest there is from consumers in particular areas. We actually recommend using search as a barometer to evaluate whether or not consumers are more interested in this area or that area. And then you have to conjugate that with what's more important for your brand to kind of make a call about which areas of content are more important to you. And actually then it's just a simple description in words of what's the role of your different content, how does this deliver the marketing objectives that you've outlined from the beginning. The good news is that you've already done most of the work for this. You've thought about your consumer, you've thought about your objectives, that's kind of the pre-work. You've thought about what content the brand should be providing and how good it is today. And you've basically also had a bit of a think about, do you have the right to win in this space? Do you have content that compares well with everything else that's on the web? And last but not least, you've thought about what consumers are actually interested in. You've had a look at the numbers. You've been able to kind of measure one consumer interest area against the other, and therefore you're now able to formulate kind of an idea of which ones are more important to you and for your consumers. So you've probably also been thinking a little bit about this, even if not consciously, which is how important pull is for your brand. And assessing pull is as simple as, I remember the Pampers example, information-hungry moms, lots of pull, lots of information requests around that area. How much pull is there in the themes that your brand has identified? Some of you were talking about recipes, some of you were talking about sports, some of you were just talking about people looking for funny content. How much pull is there in the areas that your brand is interested in? And therefore, how much push are you going to have to do when we talk about syndication? That's a kind of a strategic question for your brand overall. What I would normally do if I had kind of a smaller group, I would just ask you guys to line up in a kind of a straight line in the floor, just saying more pull, more push. So I'm going to just have a little bit of a show of hands. Who thinks that their brand is more pull than push? And so I'm just, yeah? More pull? Anyone else? More on the pull side than on the push side? So I'm going to revert the question just to make sure that I'm not getting people that are not answering the question. Who thinks that they're more push than pull? Push, 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 push. Good. So, like I mentioned, there is no right or wrong right answer. Every brand has a different profile. It's also important to note that there are shades of gray in between. It's not like all pull and no push and no or the other way around. You have to work the two things together to make sure you can create the best digital media mix. So I'm looking forward to see what you guys are going to come up with in this syndication or display section as well, because if a few of you are kind of more on the push side of things, that's going to be an interesting exercise for you as well. So what I'm going to ask you to do now is just prioritize and summarize, like I said, just from 1 to 5, 1 being the most important thing for you, 5 being the least important thing for you. There's the Pampers example here. Strangely enough, pregnancy advice for Pampers would be the kind of #1 priority, and pampering for mums, they decided they actually they didn't really have the right to win in this space because it's kind of not their core area. This we created ourselves. Like, I'm not giving out the entire Pampers digital strategy, don't worry. And then just have a think about describing in your own words what the role of that content is. And you have a few examples on your table that will help you do this. So if you just take some 15 minutes to go over this, impressive groups I've seen in terms of really putting depth into what you're thinking about. I hope it's currently useful for you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you guys to share some of what you've just done in the previous 2 sections. So we're going to debrief search and content together. The reason why we do this is because we really believe that search or pull marketing is a great way of informing the right content. And that's why we kind of put the 2 things together. So I'm going to ask each one of the groups to go through kind of these 4 questions. It's, are there any surprises in terms of kind of one of the content themes that you've identified, more or less queries that you expected? Did the keyword tools throw in any really interesting insights? Who else carries content on your themes? And do you think you have the right to win? If each group just covers 1 theme, I think it's probably enough. Just cover kind of your favorite theme from all of the ones that you've identified. And then let's talk about kind of content themes priorities. From the ones that you've identified, which ones are more important and critical for you? And what can you do to better deliver on your marketing objectives? What is that your content strategy to deliver against those marketing objectives? Which group wants to go first? Volunteers?